Hi, this is Josh Kulp for Daf Shvui. We are learning Masechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Yod Het, page 18. There are a lot of the most famous, most interesting agadot, specifically about martyrdom, that appear on this daf. Some of you may be familiar with them from the Yom Kippur liturgy, where they've been sort of reworked into one long poetic piece. And here they appear at least in a more original form. And I wanted to comment on something that I spoke about a little bit in my commentary, but I want to rehash it here. Just how complicated the rabbi's opinion was vis-a-vis Rome and the Roman authorities, and how complicated it was because of their theology that ultimately God was in control of the world, and that ultimately they were being punished or rewarded for their own deeds, and not because of the simple political power that Rome had at the time. In other words, the way that we understand the world is that Romans were simply the most powerful nation in the world, and when Jews or rabbis or any other people acted in a rebellious way against them, they would, at least on occasion, take measures against them, as any political power has tended to do throughout history. But in rabbinic theology, it gets a little bit more complicated because Rome is seen as an extension of God. So just for instance, in the first Haggadah that appears actually at the bottom of 17b, it talks about Hanina ben Tradion, and the Romans bring him up to trial. This is a continuation from something on Daf Yud Zayin. And he answers them, why did you continue? They ask him, why did you continue to learn Torah when we said it was forbidden? And he says, this is what God wants me to do. But then the Gemara asks the interesting question of why was he punished? And he was punished because he pronounced God's name in its letters, which is not something that you're supposed to do. People are not supposed to pronounce God's name the way it is actually originally said. We instead say code words for it because its name was considered to be too holy for people to even say. In other words, my point here is that the rabbis look for some kind of Jewish avera, Jewish transgression that Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion did, and not simply that he was rebelling against Rome by studying Torah, because that would cause the theological problem of why should Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion be executed, be killed, be punished, just because he was studying Torah. And the same thing goes with the death penalty meted out to his wife. Why do the rabbis imagine that she was executed? Not because the Romans were simply cruel and wanted to kill anybody associated with people they perceived to be rebelling against them, but because she didn't protest against him when he uttered the name of God, which again is a Jewish way of looking at things. When she saw him acting in an incorrect manner, she should have told him, look, Rabbi Hanina, my husband, you should stop. And the same thing with his daughter. The daughter, it's hard for me to imagine that the Romans punished his daughter because they looked at her, she was a beautiful woman, they looked at her and she was enjoyed their glances. Rather, this is an internal Jewish value statement the rabbis are trying to make here in using the story of Rabbi Hanina to illustrate it. Now, the same thing goes, I wanted to point out again, another aspect of this complicated relationship with Rome comes up in the story of the continuation, or the earlier part of the story, where Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma goes to visit Rabbi Hanina bar Tradion. And Rabbi Yossi says to him, don't you know that God has sent this people from heaven, and they've destroyed our temple, and they burned the Holy of Holies, and they're killing people. And I've heard that you continue to study Torah, even though it's obviously very dangerous. This is going to bring you to death. And Rabbi Hanina says, God will have mercy on me. In other words, he plays the total martyr. He says, I am just a vessel, and I'm going to do what God wants me to do, which is to continue to study Torah. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says back to him, Ani omer lecha dvarim shel tam. I'm saying something reasonable to you, and you give me this silly answer? Omer lo min hashamayim yirachamehu. What kind of an answer is that? Your life is in danger. You can't just say, it's all b'shamayim. Jews are not supposed to just put their lives in danger and just hope God will save them. Now, the story is ambivalent. I don't want to say the story is taking Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma's side. On the one hand, Rabbi Hanina is presented as a hero. He teaches Torah even at risk of his own death. Who doesn't read these stories and perceive the martyred rabbis to be heroes? But there is underneath the surface this other model, this other voice. There's Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, who we learn in the very continuation of the story, when he died, all of the great men of Rome went to bury him. Now, if he's a rabbi, assumedly he was still studying Torah, and yet he managed to both become a rabbi or maintain his rabbinic status and to come up with some kind of accommodating relationship with the men of Rome. I think that this important message that has been taken throughout Jewish history from this Agadah, that there is more than just martyrdom. There's also learning to live and to get along in the situation in which Jews have found themselves throughout the centuries. It's a big topic, it's a broad topic, it's not one that has an easy answer, but I think that when we look at both sides in the Talmud, we get a richer picture as to the complications of this issue.